let's jump in and have a look at the March saltwater estuary box and how you're going to use your lures this month. Right, so first up we have the Komoku Pencil. These are an awesome option for chasing brim and whiting on the flats. Now if you don't know how to find the flats, just look up the local time for your area for when low tide is. Head out, you'll see these big, wet, flat sandbars that are not in the water. You want to come back when the tide is just back over top of those sandbars, because often you'll get the brim and the whiting following the water up, following the tide up to feed on those flats once they're submerged under the water again. Now if you don't have a boat, that's okay. You can often find good flats to fish just walking the bank. This is actually one of my favourite ways to target whiting and brim. Just walking the bank, flicking flats with topwater lures, because often these mimic or look like little fleeing and skipping prawns. For whiting, you'll actually want to work this fairly quickly. No pauses. A lot of people will see whiting come after it, pause it, hoping they'll hit it, only for the whiting to turn around and swim off again. Now that's where it feels a little bit strange. If you see a whiting come after it, you kind of want to speed up your retrieve just a little bit more. That actually tempts the whiting into charging it harder and often brings more whiting in, and then they start fighting over it, over who's going to get the food source. Now if you haven't fished with a walk the dog style lure before, you essentially just a constant roll, twitching your rod up and down as you're doing it. And what this action does, it creates like a loosening and then a tensioning of your leader, which then pulls the nose of the little pencil left and right, which is what we call walking the dog. So a great surface option for your brim and whiting in your estuaries. Great time to head out and fish the flats and see if you can get one off the top. And I wouldn't be surprised if old Mr. Flathead came along to say g'day too. Now I've also added in 2 different shrimp profiles, because these things are just the best all-rounders for anything that swims in the estuaries. So we've got the Chase Baits flick prawn and then the Ikuda live shrimp. 2 different weights, both weedless, both fantastic options. And you name me one fish that swims in the estuary that doesn't eat a prawn. Now best way to work these, depending what you're fishing for. If I'm fishing for flathead, I'll cast them out looking for drop-offs, looking for choke points, looking for running water, weed edges, all the usual spots where you might find flathead. Let it sink, and you're doing a very slow hop off the bottom, maybe a 1, 2. I often try to hold my rod butt down low, so I'm just flicking just the tip of my rod, 1, 2 up, let it sink back down, 1, 2 up, let it sink back down. With the heavier one, the Chase Baits, jacks. Jacks, also big flathead, but I'm thinking jacks for this one, because it does have a fair bit more weight to it. So this one you can cast out and just a slow roll, and it will just swim along with the little legs pulsating in the water, looking like just a natural, not scared shrimp. If you want to target flathead with the Chase Baits one, same deal. You can either just let it sink and do the hop hop, or slow down that roll, and it will just look like a shrimp swimming just above the bottom of the water column. But yeah, 2 great options, 2 prawn / shrimp imitation options for the estuary guys this month. Both dynamite. Hopefully you can go out and catch some on these this month. And now I've also added in a couple of soft plastic options for you as well. So you've got the 1/12 10H, that's the heavy duty hook, Tournament Series TT Lures jig heads. Now with this, you're going to have your Flash J, you've got your Flash J in the 2-inch. If you haven't seen the Flash J's yet before, these are one of my These are one of my favourite soft plastics. With that foil finish inside, they just look amazing. Often they do give away a little bit of flash as well. So with these lighter jig heads, you're going to be chasing anything from brim, whiting, flathead, even small dewies will still chase these. Just about anything. Estuary cod. If you're fishing for the flathead, that's what I'm thinking. Because of the lighter jig head, I like to fish light jig heads for my flathead. The way I'm going to fish this after I rig them is casting up current. So if your current for me is running right to left, I'm going to be standing more to my left, casting up to my right. Because of the light jig head, the current's going to do most of the work for me. So this plastic's just going to slowly sink down in the current until it hits the bottom. Obviously you're going to have to slowly wind to keep the line from going slack. But as soon as you feel it hit the bottom, let it drag along the bottom for a couple seconds, not too long, then a couple hops back up into the water column so it can just slowly make its way back down in that current, and it just looks like a very natural bait fish. Because bait fish are so small and don't have much energy to them, if you've ever noticed, they often use the current to help them get from point A to point B in their travels. So this is what we're mimicking here. Tiny little bait fish, light little jig head, using the current to get from point A to point B. Often, flathead are going to be sitting there waiting, num num, goodbye, soft plastic, and then you've got yourself a flathead. The other soft plastic option we included, the Domeki armor shad in a 3-inch. So this is probably a more versatile flathead sort of size. I do like to use the smaller ones, don't get me wrong. I probably use the smaller ones more than the larger ones and more than I should. But if you're specifically going out with a heavier jig head, because that current may be ripping a little bit too fast, so heavier jig head, the Domeki armor shad 3-inch, casting out, let it sink to the bottom, just like the prawn. Double hop, let it sink back down. Double hop, let it sink back down again. Now if you are fishing over maybe some shoals that you've found in your estuary as well, these are a great option as well for some pinkies, some little squire or snapper, and you're going to fish with a similar retrieve, but you can probably speed it up to a medium roll with a couple twitches added in there, every now and then letting it sink back down. But you can probably get away with a lighter jig head, maybe like a 1/4 ounce on those ones, if that's the sort of fishing you're doing. And that's it for the saltwater estuary box this month. If you want to check it out or any of the other boxes in the range, just head over to www.tackleclub.com.au, pick a box that suits your fishing style, and welcome to the club.